Okay, so great to see everyone. A lot of great members here, a lot of great friends. So hope you all are having just a fantastic week. We can't wait to see many of you in a couple of weeks at the Site Selection Summit in Atlanta. But we are incredibly excited and appreciative. Hello, Rick in Alabama. Great to see you. But incredibly appreciative for your all's time here. We have a really great and important webinar here today, Retail Development and Site Strategies for Economic Development Leaders. We always love to say this, but economic development is just an incredibly hard, but an incredibly rewarding profession. You have to be so incredibly holistic in your approach to do a great job for your community or your state or your service territory. And a really important part of this is retail. And in the American South, we're blessed because we have great partners and we have great communities and leaders who are just the future forward strategies and the way at which they go about approaching this. We are incredibly advantaged because of this, and we outperform other regions because. So we're going to have some best practice conversations today, and this will be just give you plenty of great takeaways because, of course, all of the direct economic development benefits that you can imagine would come from retail. Right along with that, quality of place, talent attraction. This is just such an important piece of your economic development strategy. So I am incredibly happy, thrilled to turn the floor over to Caroline Harrelson, Director of Strategy at The Retail Coach, who has a world-class team and great friends along with her for this webinar. So Caroline, the floor is yours. Thank you for this. Thank you for being here. Also, let me just say really quick, sorry.
No, you're
At the As this moves, be thinking of questions, pop them in the chat. The team may or may not get to them, or you may answer those on forthcoming slides. If not, we'll get to them at the end. And then at the end of this, why don't you just turn your cameras on, shout out some questions. Let's have a good just family chat here. We'll also have this recorded. It'll be available for you at your convenience after the fact. So sorry, Caroline, the floor is yours. Thanks,
good.
everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks, SEDC, for letting us do this. I'm Caroline Harrelson, Director of Strategy at The Retail Coach, and just super excited to be talking to you guys today about something that we're really passionate about. So I've been with The Retail Coach for, I think, 8 or 9 years now. The Retail Coach is a national retail recruitment consulting firm. So we work directly on behalf of and as an extension of communities, mostly economic development offices and economic development leaders, to do the retail recruitment portion of what you guys all do. We actively recruit retail. We work on strategies for retail recruitment. And this is something that always comes up is how do we what's the best way that communities can catalog the commercial real estate in their market. So we want to talk about that, but I want my panelists to introduce themselves. So Jason, I'm going to let you get started and tell us about you.
Hey, Jason Greiner, Wiley EDC. I'm Executive Director of the Economic Development Corporation here in Wiley. We're a Type A corporation, so we are sales tax funded. I've been in economic development now for 16 years, 12 at the community level, and 5 years doing kind of economic development consulting and lead generation. I was looking at the attendees today, trying to figure out if I see some old clients on here listening or anything from across the SEDC service territory there. But happy to be here and been doing retail recruitment ever since I got into economic development, really. And it's interesting to see the evolution over time, really. It was just funny as a consultant, a lot of communities weren't actively engaged in recruiting retail, and you see how important it is now. So thanks for having me today. Look forward to participating.
Yeah. Jack and Matt, I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves. I just realized I need to step away and grab something real quickly. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and then just kind of give some background on, how this kind of came about in our conversations and just kind of your experience in how you kind of started to realize the need to catalog the available commercial real estate in your community and in your offices. So Matt, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then Jack, and then just kind of a couple tidbits about, how you guys started realizing the need for this.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it, Caroline. Matt Francis here with Resimplify. I am on the business development side of the organization. So we're fortunate to work with communities of all sizes, state entities, rail companies, down to small communities across the United States. So gotten to see a little bit of everything when it comes to site selection needs and kind of strategies on how to best, as she mentioned, catalog and database what assets you're currently representing in your community. But yeah, excited to be here, and definitely round two will be a good one for this show. So Jack.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so my name's Jack Stuart. I'm the economic developer for the town of Lexington, South Carolina. We don't have a separate economic development office for the town, so I work directly for the municipality. I've been in this job for 3 years now. I was brought on board kind of when this position changed. So being a town, we're limited kind of by our town limits. We've got an interstate running on one side, so our industrial area just slowly became filled up, which means somebody did their job correctly. And my job switched over, like I said, when I started out three years ago into retail recruitment. So we realized that we'd filled out the industrial parks and we needed to focus on quality of life improvements. We needed to focus on everything that comes with that. So they brought me on as a retail recruiter. I've been here for 3 years now, and we're filling up on retail now.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was still muted. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so when we started talking about this, I really just kind of reached out to some leaders in the industry and said, I know you guys deal with this in different ways. I'd love to do a webinar about this. And there are all sorts of different levels and ways that you can do this and best practices. So let's get started. Jack, you just mentioned that now you were focused on industry and now you're focused on retail. So I think that's a great segue for us to say, why retail? I know that we're talking about economic development, and a lot of times everybody thinks economic development is industry recruitment, workforce development, that sort of thing. But as many of you probably realize, because that's why you're on the call or the webinar today, retail recruitment is really, or retail is economic development. Retail development plays into so many different things. I even was talking to a client community one day, and they were saying they were trying to recruit some specialized, I can't remember, like a specialist surgeon, something. And they couldn't get any of the specialists to come because their wives all wanted a Target or wanted a this or a that in the community. And they were so excited about this new healthcare office, and then they couldn't get anyone to come. And so retail development is so much. It's quality of life. When you have more retail, then you're going to have more demand for housing. When you have more housing, you're going to have more workforce. And then all of that's going to feed into what you're able to recruit industry-wise as well. Even for industrial recruitment, people want to know what's there for their employees. So retail is economic development. Another huge piece of that is sales tax. Obviously, it funds so much. It funds your infrastructure. It funds your police force. It funds your schools. It funds extra improvements that you're able to do. Jason, Jack, anything else about retail in your communities and just why it's recruiting retail is such an important piece of that puzzle?
I'll go first. And Jack, I think you said last time around too, it's really part of the reason why you're there now, right? And the transition of a community, we're in the same boat. So, Caroline, you and I have talked about this before too, but years ago, communities really, if you mentioned retail recruitment to some of them, that almost slammed the door on you. They really focused on industrial recruitment and primary jobs. And over the last few years, especially in Texas, and I know elsewhere across the country, there's a lot more emphasis on driving sales tax and quality of life and these other projects. And for us, we've actually just gone through the evolution that's led us back to it. So the slide is interesting because, again, we had industry, we had wide open spaces, agricultural and manufacturing, 24 miles northeast of Dallas, straight east of Plano, Texas. This was a very rural area. We blew up in the early 2000s with residential growth, population followed, and then retail followed the rooftops. And we've gone through the redevelopment, revitalization, and that's, we're in the same boat as Jack. We're out of industrial land, and this is just the next evolution for us, is that next level retail and the conversion, downtown redevelopment, revitalization, and that next move. So.
Yeah, Jack, I often see you post on LinkedIn different store openings and different retail that's coming into the market. And I notice a lot of the comments on there, people that are very excited and different things. So I know just from a quality of life perspective too, all the things that it's done in Lexington.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go and get into some strategies and best practices. So keeping a catalog of available commercial sites. I know that, again, industry recruitment is so important. You've got a list of industrial sites. So why keep a list of commercial spaces? A lot of times communities will say, well, isn't that kind of the broker's job? We've got brokers listing these and this, that, or the other. Well, number one, you really need to have a comprehensive list. You, as the economic development officer, city manager, whatever your role is, you want to know just an entire list of what's available so that when you do get that call, then you're able to say, hey, we've got this property that would fit your needs, or we've got that property that would fit your needs. Jack, I know one time you said it as an economic development official or city leader in economic development, it's pretty much a made up job description. And not to quote you, those weren't your exact words. I can't remember what they were.
I've said that before, so no worries.
But yeah, I mean, you're wearing so many hats, and all the time it's other duties as assigned is the majority of your roles. And so this is really a huge part of it is, yes, the brokers are listing it. Yes, property owners, landlords, and that sort of thing. But it's so important just to have a comprehensive list of what you've got. Also, off-market properties are huge. And when I say off-markets, I don't mean the ones that have recently been leased. I mean the ones that aren't listed, the ones that nobody knows about, the one that that so-and-so's brother's uncle's mom may be willing to sell for the right price or to the right user, things like that. So definitely, as the EDO, you're the resource that's going to be able to do that. Also, the Economic Development Office really needs to be a one-stop shop. That should be your overall goal. Jason, how often do you get phone calls from somebody, even though you've got property listings online or the brokers have them listed, or there's a huge sign out front for that property? How often do you get calls just asking about all the things related to a commercial space or what commercial spaces are available in your market?
Yeah, but I think we're different. Everybody's on the call is going to be in a different size market. So small, large, they're more urban areas. You're dominated by local commercial real estate professionals. For us, we had signs that were falling over in the yard, so you had to do a little bit more boots on the ground, go look around and look at the old signage, call off the old signage. And we had residential real estate professionals that were dabbling with commercial real estate, and they weren't listing those sites anywhere. So it really kind of led to us being the primary contact, right? So that's we just had to dive in, and I had to know what was around, so I had to go get them myself. So a lot of ours are off market listings, and a lot of ours are just because they're not listed on CoStar or LoopNet, right? So
right. So just, I think a huge part of it is being able to be a resource for whatever that phone call is and whatever that site selector needs when they call. And then being able to be the one that's spearheading, proactively moving the city's vision forward. What city council wants, maybe for this submarket, maybe for the entire community. What your mayor wants, what your constituents, your colleagues want for the city. You may have a property owner that's just mailbox money, doesn't even live in the same state as you. And so they're going to lease to whoever comes along, where the city may really, really want a certain user or a certain type of user in that part of the area. So just being able to proactively move the city's vision forward is also another big thing of just the ability of the EDO to be able to move along commercial spaces. So a lot of times people will say, well, I'm not a broker. I'm just a city employee. How on earth am I going to keep up with all of the available site listings that are in the market? It's an ever-changing thing. I know that there's a lot of turnover, but there are a lot of different ways to do it. One thing is just drive the market. Jack, just any examples of ways that you found properties that you didn't even know were available that could be available?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of that's turned into just door knocking. So, a great example is I was almost late to this. I was sitting in a lunch meeting, but I went out. I found a perfect user for our market, something that I think makes sense. We recently put a park in on one side of town, and it's got a great pond and everything around it. So I was like, I need an outdoor user. That'd be amazing. There's no available space though. So I luckily made a relationship with some of the surrounding property owners there. And as a matter of fact, nothing was listed, nothing was available, but I asked and he said, hey, I'm having trouble with this tenant over here, and they're looking at moving out anyways. We actually have a space available if you want to take a stab at it. So they had to get kind of creative with it. But relationships are huge. Driving the market is big as well. I've made it a point to drive home different ways. Not every day, that's too much, but occasionally drive through the market, go see, act like, hey, if I lived in this neighborhood, how would I enter into the middle of the market kind of thing. So it really works out for me because I can claim I'm at lunch. But it really is good to get in the market, see what's going on, and see things from different perspectives on that because you never know. I mean, you might end up realizing that half of your market, while you go to the same grocery store every day, that market has to drive all the way across town to a grocery store. So you can find holes in your market that data isn't going to show.
Yeah, good point. And I'm glad you mentioned how key relationships are. Relationships with the brokers, getting to know the local brokers in your area. If you aren't sure who the local brokers are or who the main deal makers and decision makers and movers and shakers in your market are, I guarantee as you drive home today or you drive the market, you're going to start noticing the for lease signs in the commercial real estate spaces. And then you're going to see that a lot of them are listed by the same person or the same group or a number of groups. But typically a lot of, well-known names will have them all, or maybe they're listed by local real estate agents. If they're listed by local real estate agents, they may not be listing them on things like CoStar or LoopNet or places where Resimplify can find them. And so relationships are key. Also, like you were saying, relationships with property owners are key because, you really don't realize how many tenants are struggling and property owners know that they're struggling. And so they're looking to re-tenant those spaces, even though it's not actively listed, or they may be on a month-to-month lease. There are a couple communities where we're working that I've really been super surprised how many of their tenants, their retail tenants, are on month-to-month leases. And if the right tenant came along, then they could totally have an A+ space. CoStar and LoopNet are also really, really good resources for you to find things. But Matt, Resimplify takes it one step above because we can't always find the accurate information on CoStar and LoopNet. Can you tell us a little bit about how Resimplify finds active listings also?
Yeah, I think, both of those platforms are great solutions. LoopNet's going to be a free public facing platform, so anyone can use that. The one issue you might run into is it is a marketing site, essentially. So folks do have to pay to publicize listings. Therefore, some of those for sale by owners, small retail spaces may or may not be publicly available. Other resources, there's a lot out there. They're all good in different ways. Kind of our value proposition is really being that real estate research team that partners with someone like Jason. By being partnered with someone who's boots on the ground, we can identify everything that's on the market. We can kind of help maybe identify some of the for sale by owner stuff. But working with Jason to kind of say, hey, what are these off-market properties? Let's get them loaded. Let's get them databased. Really having a easily accessible, easy to use platform on your website, we've found from clients has been a huge value. And one of the things you mentioned earlier, Caroline, is, well, why don't they just reach out to brokers? A lot of our clients will typically tell us they're looking for an unbiased opinion, right? If I'm a commercial real estate broker, I'm going to point you to the property that I have listed. Whereas if you reach out to an economic development individual, they're going to give you more of a holistic overview of the community, what neighborhood might be right for you, and truly what property may be good for you. So I think having something to show that you are a resource is huge. If you have some sort of platform or database on your website, it's immediately kind of going to give that reference of I'm someone who can help you, to where if you just say we can help you with site searches, at least my impression is there's not a lot to immediately go off of. So having some way to show that we're already in this and we're doing research on this kind of information, please reach out to us. We want to help you. I think that's key.
Yeah. And Matt, I think it's a really good point that you mentioned about not wanting to reach out to the brokers sometimes. We always, when we're working in a client community and at the Retail Coach, I should mention, we're not brokers. We don't get commission on anything. We purposely want to send the best sites that are available in any market, and not be biased to any particular site. But we're proactively pushing out those commercial real estate spaces that are available. And Matt, you mentioned sometimes. So all that to say, we try to build really good relationships with the local brokers or the brokers that are big and handling spaces in those markets. Excuse me. But at the same time, we found that in some of our client communities, if they know that a retailer is looking, then especially if there are other competing communities around them and it's a larger MSA, then if they get a call from Chipotle or they get a call from La La Land Cafe or whatever it may be, which is a really cool coffee place, by the way. If they get a call from them about the one that we're advocating for in this client community, they may say, oh, yeah, but let me show you this site in this other community, where you can make sure that you're showing them the sites and keeping that interest within your community. And that's why retail recruitment is really so competitive now, because retailers are looking for just one location in an MSA right now, or they are looking for just 5 locations across the country, maybe as part of their growth strategy this year. How do you make sure that yours stay in front of them? This next slide that I have right now, again, just pointing out how relationships are key. This is in a client community of ours, in a downtown community where we're working just on their downtown project. And when we were there, the contact in the economic development office was telling me about this property that's available for lease. It's this entire second floor up here. It's a former nightclub that I think has been vacant since COVID. And here's the entrance to it right here. And I was asking him, you know, how many square feet is it? Who's listing it? You know, we really don't know. We really don't know. We really don't know. And so you can see there's a for lease sign in the window right here. So I took a picture of it, called them when I was back in the office. Well, the lady that answers this, it was an answering machine. Their office hours are Monday and Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And that's it. I could never remember for the longest couple of weeks to call them on a Monday or Thursday from 9 to 10:30 a.m. And I did leave a voicemail one time and it was never returned. So finally I put it on my calendar to call, and I got in touch with someone, and they weren't listing it. So if you're not actively driving this market in this downtown, you would have had a retailer, a national retailer would have had no clue about this space. And so I got in touch with the lady who works for the property owner, and she said, yeah, we'd love for them to come tour it. So I called our contact in the economic development office, and I was like, hey, I need you to go tour the space. I need you to take pictures of it. So here's some pictures that he sent me. And then right before I knew he was going, I also called him and I was like, I know strange request, but I also need you to take a tape measure because I really need to know how tall the ceilings are, because I was looking at some of the retailers that were interested. And one of the retailers that was super interested needed 18-foot ceilings or something like that. And so when you're looking at these spaces, you can be an advocate for the city, but you can also be an advocate for your property owners. A lot of times these property owners, you know, they may have had these spaces for years and years and years, and they just have a for lease sign up and that's it. And so you can actively be pushing them out if they're not willing for whatever reason to have them listed where they can be seen nationally. So let's say you're sent out to look at a site, or you're looking at a listing online, or you're touring a property yourself, and it's a great commercial real estate space. What do you need to know about it? Jason, thoughts on this? What are some things that you've tried to catalog and make sure that you're aware of for all of the commercial or retail potential spaces?
I mean, that really for us, when I first got here, it was creating the list and then kind of going through and trying to separate them, right? So as you're going through creating the list, I tried to collect it all. And this is a good audience here with SEDC, but you know, you guys are familiar with certified sites, and that's what I kind of go back to. And in retail recruitment, a lot of people don't think of it like certified sites. So it's like, are the utilities there? Do they allow TI? It's the same exact questions you'd say in an industrial site, your business park going, what's your capacity from gas? How many miles are you from an interstate? It's reversing around the site selection criteria from an industrial use to retail, and then also just kind of matching that with land use. And then I went through planning and zoning and land use and then looked at these same considerations. And then I think creating the list and actually tracking these different questions, if they had the parking necessary for retail, and when you get that next retailer that comes in and asks for that type of space, we're really, it's hard to find second gen space, especially second gen restaurant space in our market. So, I mean, tracking that in your database, the same way that you track leads for industrial uses, we track retail leads. That's kind of unheard of. If you rewind the clock 10 years ago, I don't know how many people were tracking retail leads. We do. And then if you find somebody that says, hey, I'm really looking for a lease space on second gen restaurant, it allows you to go back through your database real quickly and sort that. Or if you have a certain site that has to have certain criteria with the number of parks and maybe cross parking, you know, is that an option on some of these sites? Those are all considerations, because while it might not meet the immediate need, it might be able to have a threshold that can be met by doing cross parking with an adjacent property. So any of the information you can get on these sites is, I'd say, key. You want to track as much as you can. So.
Yeah, agreed. Jack, tell us a little bit, and I've got some examples on a couple slides, but tell us how you started, or how you currently track these. I mean, do you use Resimplify? Do you have a fancy system? What's your system?
So I really want to use Resimplify. After our last panel, I definitely messaged Matthew and said, "Hey, give me pricing." So
Good.
definitely found some holes in how I do it. So I am a team of one. We're small and mighty, but yeah. So this job, whenever I came into it, had nothing to it. They were like, "Hey, this is what we want you to do, but we have no structure for how that's going to happen. Kind of figure it out." So of course, for the government, that's what we do. So I have a report that I'm doing consistently, and every Friday I am saying what happened during the week. It's not the one that you're thinking of federally. I was doing this anyways. So I was able to do that, and I actually do it in Google Docs so that I can search things. So it's not the most robust way, but it's kind of what I started with doing, and I've been so busy now that there's really no way to fix it until Resimplify
You're
decides
ready
to
to do something else.
help me
Yeah.
out. But yeah,
But yeah,
so
good information.
yeah,
I mean, just start wherever you can. Pen and paper,
hmm
start writing things down,
yeah,
start a spreadsheet, start a
yep.
Google Doc.
And I do
Think
like
about the properties.
I do
Yeah.
really informal notes with it as well. Like if I meet with a property owner, if I see somebody, if there's something I notice about a property, I spell it out in there, and I make sure that I just have a really good label that I can search it again in that sense. And then I can pull up this huge sheet. If somebody asks about something across town, hey, what's going on at this address? I can go back and look at my stuff, and I'm like, here's, 5 weeks worth of random notes about this. There was a bunch of U-Haul stuff popped up in the parking lot. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. So
Yeah, I remember on our last call, you said for the longest, you had one property logged as the property owner was just listed as Salsarita's guy or something like that. So
yes.
whatever you can, just start wherever you can. Here's some
Yep.
examples of things that would be good to include, square footage, if it's a redevelopment opportunity, if it's a second gen space, like Jason was saying, that's huge. Restaurant second gen space is so important right now, as are big box spaces. If you have, if you're reading the headlines and you're seeing some stores that are closing across the country or across your state, but they haven't announced that yours is closing yet, go ahead and put it on your list. It's probably a good idea to go ahead and have that one in your inventory. And then if you're talking to retailers or you're going to trade shows, mention it, because if other stores are closing, there's a good chance that you're going to have a vacancy too. Does it have kitchen equipment, any utility or infrastructure information? Everybody mentioned parking spaces. Is it white boxed? Have you had conversations with the property owner? Do you know if they're willing to do TI? That's a big question that you're going to get a lot, especially from the right retailers. Another thing that you need to really be thinking about as you're cataloging those spaces and then actively recruiting retail is to prioritize the key vacancies or the development opportunities in your market. Put a couple pictures on this slide. If you had to choose, if you got a call from a retailer or a broker and they said, hey, I want to see commercial spaces in your market, send me any A+ spaces or anything that we could do a quick deal on. Which one of these three are you definitely not going to send? I mean, there's one that stands out to me that doesn't look like the property owner is willing to put anything into it, probably has mold on the walls, and isn't the best opportunity. I'm willing to bet probably doesn't have a lot of parking also. So if you're going to ICSC Las Vegas, or if you're sending out emails to retailers, then, have a list of your best opportunities and start with those. And then properties like this, hey, maybe market these to redevelopers, market them to someone who may be looking, and think about what's the highest and best use for that. This is an example from downtown Dallas of the way that they've started cataloging, their available vacancies in the market. They're a client of ours, and we're working just on the downtown Dallas Central Business District and working on a market strategy, a retail recruitment strategy for them. And part of our strategy was, hey, put together a list of the vacancies, because there are so many. We want to make sure that we're keeping up with everything that we need to know about them. Some things that once they start doing it, it's an amazing list that they update regularly and share it with us and some real-time format that I can't remember. But anyway, what it's called, what the building is, if it's open, who the former tenant was. A lot of times that helps because, you're talking about, oh, remember the former Verizon building, or that used to be Spaghetti Warehouse or something like that. And then, what submarket of your community is it in? Square feet available. Huge. Definitely make sure that you're noting that. And then does it have second gen restaurant equipment in it? Second slide, same thing, but then they've also taken it a step further. They put the address, and then they even put the vacancy or the date that it was vacated. This is an example from Mesa, Arizona. We had a call with them recently in another client community, and we're just saying, okay, what are our top vacancies that we want to make sure that we're highlighting? Mesa is, I think, the 36th largest community in the country. And so when you're dealing with the 35th or 36th largest community in the United States, you can imagine that there's a lot of available space, and there are a lot of developments constantly coming online. And so when we get a call from walk-ons or someone like that saying, hey, I'm interested, send me a site. Well, we want to make sure that we're really prioritizing the ones that are priorities of the city as well. And so what are those key vacancies, and how are you keeping up with them? Even if you're just putting into a Google Doc or an email. Once you have an idea of what sites are available, then go ahead. This is an older version of our retail site profiles that we put together, but go ahead and put together your own site profiles for them if you can. So then you can actively market it, and you've got all the information on those. GIS listings, maps, being able to interface all of that is really, really helpful. But just keep that catalog of what sites are available in your market and how you're going to share them. Jason, when you're going to conferences and different things, and Jack too, do you typically go thinking of every single site in your market, or do you go like ICSC Las Vegas is coming up, for example, Jason? Are you going really targeting a couple key areas, or are you going for every site? How do you prioritize key vacancies in your market?
So I had to kind of work backwards, right? So if you have openings and you have a lease space that fits a sandwich place like Jersey Mike's or something, then you go up with that site in mind, and you might blitz those industry, very similar types of businesses, and you might take that one flyer to all of those. For us, we're almost looking at it backwards. We're almost looking at the bigger users to take down larger tracks, but it just depends on what you're trying to market and what your primary focus. If you got a junior box or a larger anchor that's empty, you're going to have a lot of attention, right? It's maybe an opportunity to split it into more than one use, or is it a larger grocery store that, again, that second gen opportunity for some slower moving retailers that would really benefit from that type of opportunity. I mean, you got to get that in front of them. So I guess it depends, Caroline, on the retailer, the opportunity, I guess.
On who you're talking to. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Jack, when you're typically talking to retailers and you're sharing sites with them, are you just sending them an email with the information? Do you put together your own site profile? Do you send them the broker's listing? What all information are you sharing, and how are you sharing it?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of everything with that. So a lot of times, like ICSC is coming up. If I've got a pretty decent site, I'm going to go ahead and get that in front of them before I go to the show. And then I'll say, I'd love to talk about this site with you. And this is another important thing. I've got another one that I want to share with you as well. That's, not really on the market yet, but I'd love to show it to you in person. I can't send it to you over email. You just got a meeting. So yeah, so you kind of have to play that game a little bit with them. But in reality, I'm going to bring them the other side as well. So yeah, but I also walk into a show. I'm going to have probably 3 or 4 really fun, cool sites that I can show them potentially. I'm going to run those throughout the entire show, but I've also got all the other ones loaded up and ready to go. I've got them on an iPad. So if somebody's like, actually, this is kind of what we're thinking of, or, hey, I want to look in this area, then I'm able just to hop in and pull those up as well. So just knowing your market's it's going to save you. So
yeah, good point. A lot of times we'll have client communities or clients that'll say, hey, send this site to Jersey Mike's, or that would be a great site for Jersey Mike's. But as you guys know, and probably a lot of people on the call know, retailers have their set demographics. They have their set XYZ of exactly what their site criteria is and exactly what they're looking for. So, it's not an art. It's not just throw a dart at the wall. It's literally a science, and a lot of numbers are run and numbers are crunched to determine what the best site is for these retailers. And so when retailers are looking at sites, they're looking at all of these things. They're looking at your retail trade area. They're looking the age of your consumers, income, educational attainment, daytime population is huge. Why is daytime population huge? Because they don't want it to be in a community where everyone's going out to work. So then, Jersey Mike's isn't going to have a great daytime sales, right? Location, store size, everything that we've already talked about that you really want to keep up with for your sites. Another thing that you really need to know is are your traffic counts for your sites. You may not know traffic counts for your downtown or something like that, but if you've got a really great site off of an interstate or a highway, then go ahead and have an idea of what those traffic counts are too. And then occupancy cost, are things that they're going to be asking you about. Site criteria wise, retailers know where they want to be. They know what co-tenants they want to be near. They know what areas in the market that they want to be in. We were talking to, I can't remember if it was Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, one of those larger grocery brands that are so coveted. And we were talking about a site, we're working in one of the university towns where we're working. The university really wanted us to put a university-owned site adjacent to the university in front of Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or Sprouts or whoever it was. And they came back and they were like, college students don't spend money on organic food, right? College students spend money on cheap beer. So we don't want to be there. We want to be where the housing is. We want to be where the professors actually live. We want to be over by the hospital or that sort of thing. So retail synergy is really, really important. Also, do you know what signs are allowed in your community? Do you know the zoning of some of the different properties? Do you know the zoning of the adjacent property? Because they want to know what users may come in next to them if they did it. And then visibility and access are really super important as well. And then lighted intersection. I can't tell you how many times I get the question when we like to do a lot of virtual tours with retailers, and we'll just kind of do Google Maps and show them some different properties. And they'll say, is there ever an opportunity to put a light at that intersection? Jack, Jason, any other thoughts on things that you get questions about, or random questions that you've even gotten about a particular site in your market that you've had to think, let me go find that out for you? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, so sorry about that.
Jack's up first then.
Yeah. So access is, I'll take it. I get weird ones. Access is always a big one. So whenever I finally am able to kind of get somebody, actually looking at a site and everything, I feel like one of the first questions they're going to have is, what's the access requirement? Do I have to build a turn lane? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? Is DOT going to require me to put a traffic light in? And they're trying to kind of run through what the site cost is, because they probably have another site in mind as well. So they're probably trying to weigh the options between the two. So that's always one of the big ones. That's one that I can never confidently answer right off the bat as well. I sometimes know, and I generally have that figured out, but I always like to also kick it over to our transportation department or someone there. And it's great to have an email go back with an engineer stamp on it that is like, this is what's going to be required. And then I can be like, see, I'm not the bad guy. He is. So yeah.
Hey, Caroline, that's a good segment too. I mean, if you don't know how long it's going to take, or if it would be an approved access, for us, we've got TxDOT, so DOT, whatever state, fill in the blank. If they have control of that intersection and they're not going to put median openings that close together, or they have control for hooded lefts and no median openings. And then same thing with your site flyers. I mean, is the going work side of traffic, or is it the coming home side of traffic? I mean, like all of those things, you need to know all that. Signage and even like signals for your traffic intersections. I mean, that's a big one. And for the right retailer or the right magnitude of development, we could potentially offset that cost and actually install that infrastructure. But what's the lead time, right? So understanding all of those, that way you can communicate it as much as you can in advance. It gives the developer or the end user some confidence that, again, like you've thought through this and you've actually got a plan to get that unlocked, and that they actually can see success in your community.
Yeah, really good points that y'all made. And that reminded me of a community where we're working. It's a large MSA working on the entire community, but in their downtown specifically, there's a hard corner that's just, it's the corner of Main and Main. There's multi-story mixed use developments all around, except for this one hard corner on the southeast corner, I think it is like a really, really old T-Mobile, and it's just standing there by itself, and it's such a fabulous development opportunity. And so we've been pushing it out to some developers. The city really wants to see mixed use, ground floor retail, market rate housing up above. And so as we've been sharing that, then one of the developers called me and was like, look, how high are we allowed to go? To make my money off of it, I think whatever the variance is, we can only go 200 feet up or 300 feet up. Can you find that out for me? Okay, found that out. How many setbacks do I have to have? Or what's that? And then it's right beside a lighted intersection. And so the city was not going to allow them to have maybe they were going to have a right turn in, but they weren't going to allow them to have a driveway right there. So that had pushed away a lot of other developers. That was really good for me to know, because now when I start that initial conversation with developers, I can say, hey, here's the context on this site. Here are some of the reasons that city engineer or planner or whoever have pushed it back before and why people have walked away. So now you've got everything up front. Can you do it? So anyway, all the things, just ask all the questions as you're working through these sites, especially development and redevelopment opportunities. Again, all of these retailers have their site selection criteria, from how many cars a day they need to see, 1, 3, 10-mile radius. Looks like Duncan has an 11-mile population, incomes, building footprint, square footage, if they want freestanding, if it can have a drive-through. I can't stress enough how important it is to figure out if a site can have a drive-through or not, especially post-COVID. And Jack and Jason, I'm sure that you have this come up often. And, we even work in one specific community that I'm thinking of that really pushes away drive-throughs. They don't want any more drive-throughs. They feel like they're a hindrance. Speakered boxes are hindrances. But I mean, today, can you really do any retail development without a drive-through somewhere? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and it's double drive-throughs too. We've gone away from the single. That's too slow. How could we ever operate with one? So and I blame Chick-fil-A for that. Chick-fil-A made the most efficient drive-through process possible, and now everybody wants it. So and that's a lot of that is redevelopment. Will it fit on their site, or are they gonna have to go find a new site?
Yeah.
Caroline,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, one question that I think some of the folks in the crowd might have, that site selection criteria you brought up, how would one go about finding that?
Really good question. So the Retail Coach has flyers from years and years and years past on every retailer that you can imagine. Usually when we're working with a retailer, we're reaching out to retailers, they're going to send us their site selection criteria. If you're reaching out to retailers, if you're looking up who their real estate director is, or if you're attending ICSC, then just send them an email and say, hey, we're interested. I'd love to send you some sites. Will you send me your criteria? Honestly, Google's one of the best resources. Also, just Google Jersey Mike's site criteria, Jersey Mike's square footage, Jersey Mike's real estate. And a lot of times you're going to find on their website, it's going to take you to their franchising page, and it's going to show you what the requirements are to become a franchisee. Maybe it's also going to show you their site selection criteria. There are others that really keep it really, really close to the vest. And sometimes their sites don't seem to make sense, but they make sense to them internally. And those you just send whatever you think is the best fit. But good question, Matt. If you attend ICSC Las Vegas or any of these other shows, we always say at the end of the conference, typically for Vegas, the second day is a lot slower and you're not going to have as many meetings. So that's the day where you go around and you get all of the flyers. So you've got all of that site selection criteria too. But good question. So retail trade area, know your retail trade area so that you can actively talk about who the consumers are in your market. My husband always say lives here, works in a community that's 30 minutes, exactly 30 miles away from us. He is just as much a consumer, if not more, of that community as he is the community where we live, because that's where he goes to Starbucks, goes to Kroger, goes to Lowe's, gets gas, all the things. And so you're badly underselling your market to retailers in your community if you're only talking about your community city limits population. Jason, putting you on the spot here, but you're in Wiley, DFW area. What's your population of your community? And if you remember, what are your retail trade area numbers?
I mean, we have to have those memorized, right? So 63,000 now. I think we're over 63 in our community. Our ISD boundary is larger, but we're sandwiched in 3 communities. And again, our RTA, our retail trade area, is right at 250,000 people. So There's about 140,000, 150,000 people that shop here pretty much every day, every week. Our Kroger has about 90,000 customers that can verify with cell phone analysis, but using cell phones and retail trade area information provided by the retail coach, and then understanding where your consumers are, just coming through the area, we've got 250,000.
Yeah, if your community is not currently using cell phone data reports and retail trade area information, then reach out to us, because that is some of the most important information that you can send to retailers, so that you can actually actively look and see who's shopping at our Walmart regularly, what zip codes are they coming from, how often are they coming. So then you can accurately, or we can accurately draw what your retail trade area is, so you know who your regular consumers are. That's definitely step one of any retail recruitment strategy. Step two, know where the households are, know where the population density is, but also know the population growth. Jack, Lexington, South Carolina, I mean, do you guys have rooftops coming online? Do you get this question? Do you promote this? Tell me how important
Yes.
this is for you with retailers.
Yeah, this is everything. So everyone's looking towards the future. I can give the numbers of what we are today, but they're always wondering, are you getting bigger, are you getting smaller? Where are the people going? What's happening? So a great example is the west side of our town. And to rattle off the numbers like Jason, we're 26,000 in town. We have 150,000 come through town limits every day. So we have a huge swell every single day. West side of town is growing like crazy. It's 8 to 10% growth rate. Sustainable is about 4%. So with that, we have retailers popping up. We have big box. I mean, I'm surprised there's not fist fights in the road trying to get big sites for these big boxes. So it's huge. It means a lot, and it really has started to dictate what side of our market people are going to be on, because they want to be on that high growth side versus the other side that's a little bit landlocked, older side of town. So
yeah, definitely know how many rooftops are coming, how many are permitted to come this year, next year, and promote what that growth prediction looks like. And then the next thing, and I'll try to go through these next slides quickly. If you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat box, because we'd love to answer them as we're going, because I know we're getting close on time. On your EDC website, have all of the information readily available. I know Jason has told me many times he does not like to have his email address on his website because he gets spam emails all the time from doing it. I'm okay with that, Jason. I'll give you a pass on that, but have as much information as you can on your website available. Make sure you have some way to search available properties, or that says like, call us for available properties. Here's a good example of a community in Maryland's EDC office. You see, we've got With Love from Charles, Why Charles County, Key Industries, Incentives, Business Support, and Life. If you look on Key Industries, they actually have retail development on here. If retail is a focus for your community, which I'm assuming it is if you're on this call, make sure that you call that out on your EDC or your city website. That tells retailers that you are open for retail. You want them to call, you want them to ask you questions, and you're willing to work with them on infrastructure or whatever it may be. And then when you click on their retail development on this Charles County website, then it talks about some things, and then it also gives you the property results. On the EDO website, if you go to the Retail Coach website, you can go to resources and then webinars. And last year I did a webinar with Matt's boss, Henry Moore, the co-founder of and CEO of Resimplify, on what should be included on the EDO website. Super, super helpful information on there. But a couple of notes on that. Here's some things that are recommended. Have information about doing business here, what your key industries are, lifestyle here, and resources. And then who are your major employers? And then, incentives, demographics, all of these reports that we're pulling, make sure you've got them on there. If you're able to, have some kind of real estate property site selector searchable. Sports and recreation is huge. Jason, I know we were talking recently, you guys are maybe doing a study to do a new sportsplex or sports complex or something like that. And so what were you saying you hope to attract with that sports complex study at Next Level Retail?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're looking at the last couple pieces, and they're a little bit challenging, right? And adding that weekend traffic. We're a bedroom community, right? So we've got a lot of citizens that leave every day to go to work, and we lose a lot of people. And on the weekends, then we have a lot of disposable income, but where are they at? They're traveling with their children, going out of market, going on vacations, and they're going to these other surrounding communities. So we're losing a lot of that on the weekend. Looking at that leakage report that's you can run through either Esri, we have a subscription to Sites to Do Business, STDB. It's through a CCIM subscription, but you get a discount. And if you don't have Esri through your community, you can actually get it directly yourself. You can run your own Esri reports. One of them is actually a leakage report. If you have your retail trade area and consulting company like Retail Coach, then they can, of course, run those reports for you. I had to run some of my own 135-mile radius, and I had to run some of the leakage reports. And sports and recreation is a huge one, right? And we're losing it every weekend. And like Jack, maybe being next to some bigger communities, I mean, our consumers are going elsewhere, and we're looking at trying to retain some of those people in our community.
Yeah. And, as a family who has kids in travel sports, I know that there is a lot of sales tax dollars that you can get that are spent on those weekends. So definitely something that you want to gain. And I know that recently when we talked about it, you were saying attracting sports complexes. Then next, you really wanted to have some next level conversations with hotels, because that's a big component of recruiting hotels. Also entertainment and events, visitor numbers, healthcare, like we talked about, housing. And then I think it's so important to have on your website about us and the staff or the team. If you just have the staff contact or an about us contact, that's fine. I always suggest that EDOs, if you're focused on retail recruitment, call out who's in charge of the retail component, or who's kind of the retail contact. When I don't know why I refer to this, because we have not been in the market to buy a new house for years, but usually, if you're looking online for a house or something like that, or even for a retail site, if you have to just fill in a contact box, then you're a lot less likely to just fill in like a generic box to ask a generic answer and not know who's going to respond to you. Whereas if I see Jason's contact, or I see Jason's picture on there, I know he's the guy to call. Even if he's not willing to give me his address, his email address, I'm hoping he's giving me his phone number. So then I can pick up the phone and call him, and I know exactly who I'm going to.
Hey, Caroline, in my
yes.
defense, that is, I've changed my mind over the years with industrial stuff. Like, you want to control that. You want to know all the people that are looking, right? Retail is the same way. We want to quantify those leads. So I am okay with it now, because otherwise the broker that they call, if they have other listings in other markets, they're just going to steal that lead and go sell your neighboring community, right? So actually being able to have that conversation, that might not be the perfect site, but you might be able to spin them somewhere else in your town.
Yep,
so.
exactly. And then, the other thing, I don't know how many, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but with CRM, I don't know how many communities are actively tracking their retail outreach and then retail growth and retail successes and wins off of that. But if you're the first call, then you know that the retailer was looking, you gave them that information. And then when they do open and it is a success, then you can count that in your little win box. Here's an example of Wiley's website, because Jason, I think you do it well. Why Wiley? Site selection, business resources, properties, and about us. Then your site selection goes into demographics, retail in Wiley, and then you can also go to the property selector tool. This is an example of the Resimplify platform. So Matt, just tell us a little bit about this. I've got a couple slides that show us the filters and then how you're able to look at things, but what's the pro of everything that you guys are pulling on here?
Yeah. So this is actually us. We feed the commercial real estate listings. This is in tandem with one of our partner platforms, which is GIS WebTech. So there's a couple different GIS tools, GIS WebTech, GIS Planning, Lois, all phenomenal platforms. We essentially put it on autopilot by supplying the available commercial real estate information. And we do have our own property tool for those who don't have the budget for both the GIS system and the data feed. But yeah, great tool. You can filter based off for sale, for lease, how many square footage are you looking for? What type of property are you looking for? They've got some other information around demographics and, honestly, incredible amounts of data points. So you can get a lot out of these platforms, and they all have different, benefits to them.
Yeah. So if you for example, I think when I took these screenshots, I filtered by retail. And so then it's showing me available retail, kind of gives me a map of where it is in the market. Something interesting that Jason does, which I think is a great call, is even though he knows who the listing agent is, he's got their brochure or their flyer attached, but he puts himself Look at that. He put his email address on there too. He puts himself as the contact. So again, the EDC office, the EDO office is a one-stop shop. You're the resource. You're fielding those calls. If you know that you've got a user that's interested maybe in this Dairy Queen location, you're going to give them information on that, but you're also going to tell them about some other properties when they call that may also be a fit, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And so, the other thing that I think is really good about this Resimplify platform, or just having the access to put things on your website, is you can also put those off-market listings on there. So Jason, I'm assuming that you probably have a couple listings on there that are city-owned properties or other properties that aren't currently listed that you've been able to either email Matt's team, or you've got the capability to go in and input yourself.
Yeah, and when I was in East Texas in Longview, we only put industrial properties on there, right? And you had to have a price, you had to have certain criteria, otherwise we wouldn't even list on the EDC website. On the marriage here with Resimplify and GIS Web Tech, I couldn't keep up with available property changes in this market. It's one thing to have a database of all of your available land assets and market those for development or industrial use, right? But when you got into the mix of lease space and just that churn, Resimplify's tool, like monitoring that information 24/7, 365, automatically updating it on our website, is a total game changer. And then we again looked at a couple different solutions. GIS Web Tech was a great one for us, but you have the GIS integration directly in our website. I don't update those listings, and I want to say that's probably the best thing about it. I can program some land properties directly in there, but from a commercial real estate perspective, Matt and his team pull rabbit out of a magic hat. I don't know how they do it, but they scour the internet, pull all those listings in, and it loads on my website. And it's awesome because sometimes people call me and I'm surprised that the property is available for lease too. So
good plug, and I like it, and I totally agree. And with Wiley as one of the retail coach clients, we love it when our clients are working with Resimplify too, because it makes our jobs a lot easier to see what sites are available and to have those markets and those listings listed in the market. But all that to say, retail really is a huge component of your community's comprehensive economic development strategy. If it's not, start looking at it, start somewhere and figure out the best way to do it. Last thing, I think all of us, Jack, I'm not sure if you are, I assume you are going to be attending ICSC Las Vegas in May. Make sure you're participating in these industry events and networking opportunities. If you don't have the budget to do ICSC Las Vegas, start small. Here's an example of one of the smaller regional conferences, ICSC conferences, or try a retail live. But if you're attending ICSC Las Vegas, reach out to me. I'd love the opportunity to talk to you. I know Matt and the Resimplify team are going to be there also. And Jason and Jack, we have happy hour at our booth at the end of Monday, and I assume both of them will probably be there for that. So stop by and introduce yourselves to them, and here's some more just best practices from two guys who are doing it really, really well in smaller markets, bigger markets, smaller offices, bigger offices, and wearing all the hats and different things. So I know Matt mentioned earlier, we would love for everybody to, if you want to, turn on your camera and just say hello or ask a question or tell us where you are, and we'll just kind of open up the floor. Don't all speak at once.
everybody gets shy.
Everybody is. Well, we'll give it a minute or so more to see if we have any questions. But I've got our contact information on the screen, including Jason's email, and I'm going to put this somewhere public where he can get all of his spam emails sent to him. But thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope that it was some helpful information. We will, or have already, I think, shared the slides with the SEDC team. So I assume they'll have those available if anybody wants them, or welcome to email me and I'll send them to you. And just would love to continue the conversation. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, just reach out to us. Matt, thank you so much for letting us do this. This was super fun, and I appreciated the conversation.
Well, great stuff as always. So thank you so much. Thanks, Worth County said thank you. It was very helpful. But thank you to the great speaking team that we had here. Also to the audience. That concludes this one. We will see you at the Site Selection Summit, hopefully in a few days. After that, our next webinar is building a trackable talent attraction system. So that's May 7th, building a talent attraction system. After that, please, if you're going to be at Select USA, come find our booth and say hi to us, hang out as well. So that's it. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Have a good one.
Thank you.